One could argue that I was once a sociopath, but I was completely unaware. I was probably focused on my own needs, especially food and certain objects that amused me. And if those needs weren't met, I made it known that I'd be ready for war if I didn't get what I wanted. It's been hard for me to determine when I crossed over from impoliteness and greed to empathic and more self-aware. I would have to assume that I crossed this imaginary line shortly after I started kindergarten, roughly 4 or 5 years old, and even then, it's likely that the traits of being a toddler, although watered down by this point, still lingered. Infants are naturally egocentric and lack impulse control. Although these traits are crucial for their survival, they demand constant attention without reciprocating, driven by a primal need to ensure their needs are met. This behavior aligns with Sigmund Freud's concept of primary narcissism, where infants are primarily concerned with self-gratification. As children grow, they gradually learn empathy and impulse control, though these traits can persist in a maladaptive form, leading to adult narcissism. The persistence of narcissistic traits into adulthood can be influenced by genetics and upbringing. Identical twin studies indicate a strong genetic component, while theories like the mask model suggest that narcissism can be a defense against deep-seated insecurities. Alternatively, excessive parental indulgence can foster narcissistic traits. Why is narcissism in nature? More specifically, why has it survived as a trait in humans in evolution? It's characterized by traits like grandiosity, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy. Is there an evolutionary significance? It can enhance an individual's social dominance and attractiveness, key factors for survival and reproduction. In ancestral environments, narcissistic individuals likely leveraged their self-confidence and charisma to secure resources, mates, and social status, which are crucial for passing on genes. Narcissism can also contribute to resilience. High self-esteem and sense of superiority can buffer against stress and failure, promoting perseverance and adaptability. These traits may help individuals navigate social hierarchies and challenges, ensuring their continued influence and reproductive success. Assertiveness and decisiveness can make individuals effective leaders, inspiring others and coordinating group efforts. This can benefit group cohesion and collective success. However, in modern times, it gets murky and becomes a double-edged sword. Excessive narcissism can lead to social conflicts and long-term relational issues. Therefore, a balanced level of narcissistic traits might have been favored evolutionarily. But where is the line? Welcome back to Student of the Brain, or if this is your first time visiting, welcome. My goal is to provide honest discussion on psychology, the human brain, human behavior, and all things in between. I try my best to provide accurate information, and I've provided references below. Please enjoy the vid, like, subscribe, and share. Let's get started. The term narcissism derives from the Greek myth of Narcissus, a figure renowned for his extraordinary beauty. According to the myth, Narcissus fell in love with his own reflection in a pool of water. Unable to tear himself away from his image, ultimately leading to his demise. This tale was immortalized by the Roman poet Ovid in his work Metamorphoses, written in the 1st century CE. The term itself, however, did not enter psychological discourse until the early 20th century. The concept of narcissism in a psychological context was first introduced by Sigmund Freud in his 1914 paper on narcissism, An Introduction. Freud described narcissism as a natural part of human development, but distinguished between primary narcissism, which is a normal stage of self-love in infancy, and secondary narcissism, which he associated with certain pathological conditions. Freud's pioneering work opened the gates for subsequent theories and diagnostic criteria related to narcissistic personality traits and disorders, or NPD, is characterized by a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, a constant need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders outlines specific criteria for diagnosing NPD, including a grandiose sense of self-importance, preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love, belief that one is special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high-status people or institutions, requirement of excessive admiration, a sense of entitlement, interpersonality exploitive behavior, lack of empathy, envy of others or belief that others are envious of them, haughty behaviors or attitudes. Individuals with NPD often exhibit behaviors that reflect these criteria. They may exaggerate their achievements and talents, expect constant praise and admiration, and display a sense of superiority. They often monopolize conversations, belittle or look down on people they perceive as inferior, and expect special treatment. Their relationships are typically superficial and exploitative, as they use others to achieve their own needs. Criticism or defeat can lead to feelings of humiliation, anger, and a sense of being attacked, often resulting in defensive or aggressive behaviors. There is a significant overlap between narcissism and psychopathy, both of which are part of the broader category of personality disorders. Psychopathy, often characterized by traits such as superficial charm, high intelligence, manipulativeness, and lack of remorse, shares several features with narcissism, particularly in terms of interpersonal exploitation and lack of empathy. However, there are distinctions between the two. Psychopathy is more strongly associated with antisocial behavior and criminality, while narcissism is more focused on self-centeredness and grandiosity. Research suggests that while all psychopaths may exhibit narcissistic traits, not all individuals with narcissistic traits meet the criteria of psychopathy. The relationship between the two has ongoing debate and research into their connections and distinctions. Diagnosing NPD presents several challenges. One significant issue is the subjective nature of the diagnostic criteria. Traits such as grandiosity and lack of empathy can be difficult to measure objectively, leading to potential variability in diagnosis. Additionally, individuals with NPD are often resistant to seeking treatment or acknowledging their condition, as their self-perception conflicts with the idea of having a disorder. Moreover, comorbidity with other mental health disorders complicates the diagnostic process. NPD frequently coexists with other conditions such as depression, anxiety, and substance abuse. Differentiating between symptoms of NPD and those of other comorbid conditions requires careful and nuanced clinical assessment. Another challenge is the social and cultural context. Societal values that emphasize individual achievement and success can sometimes blur the line between healthy self-confidence and pathological narcissism. Clinicians must consider cultural factors when assessing potential cases of NPD to avoid overdiagnosis or underdiagnosis based on cultural norms. Research and clinical practice have identified several subtypes of narcissism, each with distinct characteristics. Overt and grandiose narcissism is the most commonly recognized form and aligns closely with a traditional view of NPD. Individuals with overt narcissism express superiority, entitlement, and a need for admiration. They are often charming and charismatic, but can be arrogant and dismissive of others. Covert narcissism, also known as vulnerable narcissism, is characterized by hypersensitivity, defensiveness, and a deep-seated sense of inadequacy. Unlike overt narcissists who openly display their sense of superiority and need for admiration, covert narcissists are more introverted and may appear shy and modest. However, beneath this facade lies an intense preoccupation with their own worth and a constant need for validation. Covert narcissists often harbor feelings of envy and resentment towards others, especially those who they perceive as more successful and attractive. They may experience frequent bouts of depression and anxiety due to their fragile self-esteem and chronic sense of unfulfillment. Their relationships are marked by a passive-aggressive dynamic, where they may indirectly express their frustration and demands for attention. These individuals tend to be highly sensitive to criticism and can react with disproportionate anger or withdrawal when they feel slighted. Their interpersonal interactions are often marked by subtle manipulations aimed at eliciting reassurance and admiration without overt displays of arrogance. This form of narcissism is more challenging to recognize and diagnose due to its subdued and introverted presentation. Vulnerable narcissism, on the other hand, is characterized by hypersensitivity and defensiveness. Unlike the grandiose, individuals with vulnerable may appear shy or withdrawn but harbor deep-seated feelings of inadequacy and a need for recognition. Their self-esteem is fragile, and they are prone to feelings of shame and anxiety. Malignant narcissism also includes antisocial behavior and is often considered the most severe form, with displays of grandiosity, aggression, and paranoia. They are manipulative, lack empathy, and can engage in exploitative or harmful behavior towards others. This subtype is closely associated with traits found in psychopathy. Hypervigilant narcissism, often overlapping with covert narcissism, is marked by heightened sensitivity to how others perceive and treat the individual. The hypervigilant are acutely aware of any perceived criticism or slight and are constantly on the lookout for signs of disrespect or disapproval. They tend to react defensively, often interpreting neutral or ambiguous social cues as negative. This form of narcissism is driven by a deep-seated sense of vulnerability and inadequacy, making these individuals prone to feelings of shame and insecurity. They may oscillate between withdrawal and passive-aggressive behaviors in social interactions, seeking reassurance while maintaining a facade of indifference. Exhibitionist narcissism aligns closely with the classical understanding of grandiose narcissism. This is characterized by their overt display of self-importance, attention-seeking behaviors, and a constant need for admiration and validation from others. They are often charismatic, extroverted, and skilled at manipulating social situations to their advantage. They thrive on being the center of attention and are likely to exaggerate their achievements and abilities. Their interactions are typically marked by a lack of empathy and a tendency to dominate conversations, often dismissing or belittling those they consider inferior. Vindictive narcissism involves a propensity for revenge and aggression in response to perceived slights or threats. They are not only sensitive to criticism, but also prone to harboring grudges and seeking retribution. Their vindictive behaviors can be manipulative and calculated, aimed at undermining or punishing those they believe have wronged them. This type of narcissism is often linked with traits of psychopathy, including a lack of empathy and remorse. They may engage in sabotage or other forms of covert aggression to maintain their sense of superiority and control. Somatic narcissism focuses on physical appearance and bodily health as the primary source of self-esteem and validation. Somatic narcissists place excessive importance on their looks, fitness, and sexual conquests. They derive a sense of superiority from their physical attributes and often seek validation through admiration of their appearance. These individuals may spend considerable time and resources on grooming, exercise, and cosmetic enhancements. Their interactions often revolve around discussions of physical prowess and attractiveness, and they may look down on those who do not meet their standards of physical perfection. Please see my video where I discuss materialism. Cerebral narcissism is characterized by an overemphasis on intellectual abilities and achievements as the primary means of self-validation. They view themselves as intellectually superior and seek admiration for their intelligence, knowledge, and mental acuity. They often engage in behaviors that showcase their intellectual prowess, such as dominating conversations with complex jargon, belittling others' opinions, and displaying a condescending attitude. Their relationships are typically transactional, valuing others primarily for their intellectual contributions or the admiration they provide. They may struggle with genuine emotional connections as they prioritize intellectual validation over emotional intimacy. Spiritual narcissism involves using spirituality or religious practices as a means to gain admiration and assert superiority. Spiritual narcissists present themselves as enlightened and morally superior due to their spiritual practices, beliefs, or experiences. They often seek validation through demonstrating their piety, wisdom, or spiritual insights. This can manifest in behaviors such as preaching or dismissing others' spiritual paths as inferior, and may use their spirituality to manipulate others, gaining followers who reinforce their sense of superiority. Communal narcissism is marked by a preoccupation with one's perceived altruism and contributions to the community. They derive their sense of self-worth as being seen as helpful and socially responsible. They often engage in public displays of charity and social activism, seeking admiration for their selflessness and benevolence. However, their altruism is often self-serving, aimed at enhancing their reputation rather than genuine concern for others. They may become resentful or vindictive if their contributions are not adequately recognized or appreciated, revealing the underlying narcissistic motivation. Healthy narcissism refers to a balanced and realistic sense of self-esteem and self-worth. They possess self-confidence and assertiveness without the need for constant validation or admiration from others. They are capable of empathy and maintain healthy relationships based on mutual respect and understanding. Healthy narcissism involves recognizing one's strengths and achievements without exaggeration and accepting one's limitations without undue self-criticism. This form of narcissism supports psychological resilience, personal growth, and a positive self-concept, contributing to overall mental health and well-being. The potential genetic and hereditary basis of narcissism has been a subject of research, though findings are still emerging. Twin studies suggest a significant genetic component to personality traits, including those associated with narcissism. For instance, a 1998 study found that genetic factors accounted for a substantial proportion of variance in the traits such as grandiosity and entitlement. Further research in 2017 indicated that narcissistic traits have moderate heritability, similar to other personality traits. This suggests that while genetics play a role, environmental factors are also significant in the development of narcissistic characteristics. Clinical studies have explored the neurobiological underpinnings of narcissism. Research using neuroimaging techniques such as functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, has identified structural and functional differences in the brains of individuals with high levels of narcissistic traits. For example, studies have found differences in the volume and activity of regions associated with self-referential processing and empathy, such as the prefrontal cortex and the anterior insula. Despite these findings, the genetic and neurobiological research on narcissism is still in its early stages, and more studies are needed to draw definitive conclusions. The interactions between genetic predispositions and environmental influences, such as parenting styles and social experiences, requires further investigation. I have to admit, while reading some of the articles listed below, I naturally tried to diagnose myself to confirm if any of these traits lined up with me, which led me to wonder if I have a mix of most of these traits. I don't know. Perhaps. Is it possible that we all have small and healthy portions of each of these traits? Referring back to narcissism in ancient times, it seems to be a necessary trait for survival. We seem to be natural narcissists mixed with self-awareness, empathy, and a willingness to cooperate for the greater good. Let me know down in the comments what you think all of this means. What is the purpose of narcissism? Thanks for watching. And if you enjoy these types of vids, like, subscribe, and share to help grow my channel. Stay strong and healthy. Much love.